If there is a God, he has to be so pissed at religious apologists. Because no matter what I do or say to make God look stupid, vicious, and incompetent, I can't even touch what these guys are doing. It's infuriating. I am beyond jealous. I mean, this is my job, right? And they're constantly doing things to try to put me out of work. It's not cool. We're going to be looking at one of Inspiring Philosophy's videos titled The Imperfect Mosaic Law. Not the whole thing. It's long and quite repetitive. And we're going to be jumping around a bit because I want to save the best for last. But the point of Michael's video can basically be summed up as follows.
Well, we need to remember the Bible implies in many places that the Torah was not a perfect moral code from God. It contained concessions for stiff-necked Israel.
Okay, so there it is. But why were they stiff-necked, Michael? Huh? Because God failed to give the children of Israel pillow technology. Apparently, God cares about those of us living now far more than he cared about the ancient Hebrews, because he saved another Mike Pillow, for the 21st century. Early on in Mike's video, he makes the following concession to folks like me, which I greatly appreciate.
Let's just say the skeptics are right. The Torah does contain numerous passages that contain immoral ideas.
Again, appreciated, but Michael, there's a huge flocking difference between a perfect moral code and blatantly immoral passages. Who even knew you could be an all-powerful, all-knowing, morally perfect being and leave your people with immoral passages in their holy book? I guess with God, all things really are possible. Michael then adds to his main point.
But also, God admits the Torah was never meant to be a perfect moral code.
Where does God admit that the Torah was never meant to be a perfect moral code? Michael's going to quote the book containing God's imperfect moral code to tell us that God admits that it was not God's perfect moral code. But exactly how do we know that's God's admission? I mean, this book is clearly not perfect, right? Any chance it was not God's perfect moral code because it was, I don't know, maybe invented by stupid, ignorant humans living in a time of moral ignorance, and that was simply the best they could do? Rather than the Torah being divine instructions from a morally perfect being? This is a good example of how believing without sufficient evidence leads to a chain of reasoning that has absolutely no grounding or sense whatsoever. Michael confidently says that God admits the Torah is not God's perfect moral code, and his evidence is nothing more than people saying God said it. As an example, Michael says Jesus said X about the law of Moses, confirming the point.
In Matthew 19, the Pharisees come and attempt to trick Jesus by asking him a question about the law of divorce.
Yada, yada, yada. So, Michael's evidence is that Jesus said X about the law, but did he? Or is that what some anonymous non-eyewitness said, telling us what someone else allegedly said Jesus said, writing decades later after all kinds of legendary development has taken place? Of course, Michael never thinks about that because he swallowed all of this nonsense hook, line, and sinker. But let's look again at the choice Michael offers us to see which one makes more sense. We have a perfectly moral God giving humans what Michael admits is an imperfect moral code, or an imperfect moral code invented by morally imperfect humans. Which seems more likely? Can you do the math on that one and see how the two imperfects align perfectly? Whereas the perfect and the imperfect just butt heads like nobody's business. Is it really that hard? Or is the math just so difficult when you really want something to be true, when it's objectively stupid?
This implies some of what is in the Torah was included due to a compromise between God and Israel.
So much for thy will be done, right?
So the evidence suggests the stipulations of the Torah could be revised and expanded upon when justice was not being achieved.
If only God would have known when justice was not being achieved. That's the problem with turning off your all-knowingness. You don't know things that are obvious to even ignorant desert dwellers. Wait, that's not the tribal war god of Abraham, that's Mr. Deity. What a shameless plug.
It could be modified in ways that God did not initially want, or could be modified for just reasons.
This is as human as it gets, folks. Keep moving, because there's absolutely nothing transcendent to see here. Imagine an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-just God who doesn't get what he initially wants, and apparently doesn't know at some earlier point that he's not going to get what he wants. And again, apparently those just reasons, the reasons God allowed the Torah to be modified by the Hebrews, never included forbidding slavery or honor killings. Apparently those things were and are just.
And some of the passages come from requests by Israelites.
So the all-knowing God of the universe had a suggestion box, for stuff he couldn't figure out on his own. Good to know.
Now, because Israel was a high-context society, it is not always stated if God approved of each passage or if he was allowing something to be included to compromise with Israel.
From the pre-Exodus stories in the Bible, does it seem like God would be the type to compromise? Adam and Eve, not knowing good from evil, disobeyed God in the most benign way, and God screwed us all with a sinful nature. He cast them and all of us out of paradise into a world of suffering, including physical and spiritual death. We've got Sodom and Gomorrah, the flood. Did someone put God on a benzodiazepine or something? Well, that's all the time we have for this video, but stay tuned and tubed, because there's still so much stupid left in Michael's video, you won't believe it. We haven't even gotten to the part where Michael tries to compete with me in terms of making God look stupid, vicious, and incompetent. You're not going to want to miss that. Unless, of course, you're a believer. Until then, I'm me. Thanks for watching.